Hello, everyone. This is MMA Interesting Prospects podcast. Today, our guest is one of the best amateur welterweights in US, Erick Reaves. Hello, Eric. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. And to be honest, when I checked rankings on Topology, you are number 5 in US out of
Sure.
definitely over 2,000 fighters. So it's like even by the numbers, it's a super impressive thing.
Thank you. Lots of hard work going into it, practicing every day, fighting. I had about 7 fights in a little over a year. So, just running with it, running through them.
And actually, it's also kind of crazy that like 14 or 15 months ago, you actually didn't have any amateur fights. Right now, you are 7-0 with the 7 finishes with 2 belts, I believe.
Sure.
So you are definitely the player. And the question is, in that time, is if anything could go better for you?
Uh, Honestly, no. Everything, I feel like everything's laid out for a reason. The things happen for a reason. So, I'm happy with how everything's gone. I had the first 5 fights that ended in the first round. It wasn't until my sixth fight that I got out of the first round, and I was really excited to get out of the first round because you can't really show too much, in a couple of minutes. So I like how everything is going. And I hope everything pretty much goes the same way.
And probably it was a good experience for you fighting in fourth, especially fourth round, because it's like the minutes in the cage are super important in this stage of your career.
Definitely, definitely. That was one of the bigger concerns that we had was, if before I turned pro, we want me to get out of the first round. So I'm happy, had a couple of fights at that point that got out of the first round, but try to keep them in the first, get in, get out.
And of course, you are 7-0. So some may say that you are ready to go pro, but do you have some timeline for the next steps of your career?
Yeah, everything, like I said, I like 14 months or something. I think you said it was, so everything's been happening super fast. So, I kind of want it to slow down a little bit, maybe, enjoy the process a little because, I know guys that have been amateurs for 3, 4 years, and, you know, just have as many fights as I do. So, I want to slow down a little bit. I probably got 2, maybe 3 more fights before I turn pro, but just slow it down a little. That way I can enjoy the process, enjoy all the victories and everything else because everything's just been so back to back. Haven't really had time to, enjoy any of it. Just been constant training camp.
Yes, because actually it's a like rare thing to be as active, especially as the pro. So like fighting once in 2 months is like a really rare thing. So in the end, probably it would be good for you to have a little bit longer breaks, also just to spend the time in the gym.
Yeah, definitely no, because that's when you improve the most is when you're not in the fights, when you can actually train everything separately. And so, that's what I'm kind of doing now, just working on my boxing separately, my wrestling, my jujitsu, all that, just working on everything separately. And then probably at the end of this month, I'll put everything together and start my next camp because I believe I just got booked for October in Muskegon. So excited for that.
So there is a big chance for eighth finish for you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
And about your beginnings in the overall combat sports, did you have any like other background before going to MMA?
Yeah, so I wrestled for a long time, for about 8 years or so. Uh, I went to states twice as a senior in high school, and then COVID happened. Graduated 2020, kind of messed some stuff up, so I just never pursued that. Um, and then in between wrestling and football, I boxed for a second. Nothing too crazy, but just I was always getting in fights and stuff, and always been good at it. So I figured, after gaining 300 pounds and losing a couple of it, figured best way to lose the weight's to do what I know how to do best, and it's wrestle, physical activities, and stuff like that. So I went into the gym and turned a little fat kid into an animal. So
And actually, in your fights, so like fans can see that you are a very good wrestler, and also you are really good in the clinch. You can like tire your opponent really quickly. So I think that it is also a really important thing just to have this kind of ability and to have like dirty boxing in the clinch.
Yeah, one of the guys I work with, Justin Street, he's a really good boxer. He's a bare knuckle fighter for BKFC. Um, he works on a lot of my boxing and stuff, and that's, really where a lot of that comes from is just working with him, over because like I trained for I think about a year before I had my first fight, and I was with him pretty much every day working my boxing before class even started and stuff like that. And so I think that helped out with all that. But slinging hands is easy. And I feel like anybody can do that if they got the balls for it. It's just about tucking that chin and biting down.
And right now, the gym that you are right now training in, is it the first full MMA gym that you went to?
Yeah, yeah. This is the first gym I went to, and I'm probably never leaving.
And
Everybody at the gym is like family. Everybody's super close. Everybody takes care of each other, and so I wouldn't want to go to any other gym. And from my knowledge, we also have probably one of the best teams in Michigan. I know we have three guys ranked number one in the state, and I know we have probably the most belts in MMA and kickboxing in our gym.
I think that in this kind of gyms, the smaller gyms, the atmosphere is really usually really really cool and really important because it's like you are like friends, like family. It's not a super big gym that you may not really know some of the sparring
Yeah,
partners, but here you probably know each other really really well.
yeah, how it goes. With MMA being so much more popular now and stuff, you get a lot of civilians and randoms in and stuff like that. But fighter wise, where most of us are pretty close, tight knit. We all help each other cut weight. We all help each other train. Like you said, it's a family. We're in there just as much as we are, if not more than at home.
And can you share some of the names of your sparring partners, especially guys like you, like really, really talented prospects?
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, geez, so many names. Brandon Mitchum, Christian Neff, Andrew Antlin, Justin Street, Dean Cardwell, uh, Ken Hunt. Geez, I can probably think of 100 other names. It's a lot of our guys in the gym are just straight killers. Nick Daniels. Uh, I, we have a lot of really good guys, and especially Christian Neff and Brandon Mitchum. Those are the other two in our gym that are the number one ranked amateurs, and I think Neff has four belts. Uh, he's an animal. So when you're training with guys like that, you gotta level up to keep up with their pace.
So maybe it will be the beginning of your gym making this kind of really high level pro, maybe UFC fighters, and in like 5 or 7 years it will be like UFC fighter, and this will be like this bunch of this bunch of fighters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with the group that we have coming up, we're all pretty much the best in the state, some of the best in the country and stuff. And uh, one of the promotions, Legends of Combat, that's the promotion I prefer to fight for. They've had a couple of guys going to the UFC and stuff, so just taking most of my fights with them and letting them pick the fights. I don't. That's the other thing. I don't say no. It's just a fight. I leave that up to my coaches and everybody else to say yes or no because I'll always say yes. So hopefully the next couple of years or so, though, definitely I think a lot of us are going to be on that big show.
And actually, I think that saying yes, especially on the amateur level, is a really important thing because even if you lose 1 or 2 fights, actually it will not really matter. When you go pro, you will be undefeated, and this is actually the aspect which is important. And in the end, in amateur scene, you can fight against really good fighters, and there will be like no consequences record-wise.
Yeah. I forget who I was talking with about that, but you know, as an amateur, your record disappears. So we're all gonna start 0-0 again. But that's the best part about it. That's why I don't. Win or loss, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go out and fight. And take those hard fights as an amateur and really test myself and push my pace. And once I turn pro, probably be a little smarter and a little slower and pick bigger name fights and everything else.
And do you have fighters that inspired you in some ways, especially in the beginning of your career?
Hmm. That's a hard one. So I'm not a I don't watch too much UFC or nothing. I'm more of a casual when it comes to that stuff. You know, I don't I like it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, doing this for money. It's a job. The guys on TV, I don't see them as idols. I see them as competition or future competition. So I'm the people I'd look up to them. That really got me into it the most. I'd say it'd have to be some of the guys at my gym and a lot of the older guys at my gym, and just can't really just put a couple of names down on that. Because they're all so influential, helping out so much with so many different things.
So there are actually some of the fighters even in the UFC that, of course, they are aware of the fighters, but they are not really watchers of the UFC. So there are like few different types of fighters, let's say.
Definitely. Oh man, geez, CTE is real. What was the question?
No, I just said that there are fighters who don't want don't like usually watch the UFC, like you mentioned that you are not
Oh yeah,
the person who watch a lot.
yeah. I watch the big fights. This, and that, or if a guy I like, that I have a very similar style to or something. I'll watch that fight just to see if I can pick something up. But yeah, it's a job, it's a business. It's a it's a lot more entertainment than it used to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I think Justin Gaethje had one of my favorite quotes. I don't want to be the best in the world. I want to be the most entertaining. And that's kind of how I like to roll. It just is what it is. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do my damage and try to be entertaining. It doesn't really matter who's across. Doesn't matter the record. None of that means much at all.
And when you are in the training camp, because lately you were in the training camp a lot, what do you do with the tough days? Like you are a little bit beaten, you maybe don't want to go to the gym. What do you do in this kind of situation?
Through wrestling and everything, you kind of just build up a grit and like an autopilot almost when those days come. You just gotta kind of still show up and just take your licks. Some days you're gonna be the hammer, some days you're gonna be the nail. So those days you're the nail, you just gotta kind of go on autopilot and suffer through it. Especially doing this stuff. You know, miss a day of training, it can make a big difference in the long run. So you just grit. You just got to do it. No excuses. Just grind through, show up. Even the days I don't really want to show up, if I have something going on, and I might, it'd be more efficient for me just not to go to practice. Still go for an hour or two, just because you don't want to lose that routine of going. Like one day turns into 2 days, 2 days turns into three, and then you're taking the whole week off.
So it's not nothing better than old school good discipline.
Yeah, it's straight discipline. Wrestling really helps out with a lot of that. So it's really just a grind. It's autopilot when it comes to those days.
And outside of training of fighting, when you have a little bit more free time, what do you like to do in that moment?
When I'm not training and stuff, and I have some free time. Generally, I don't do too much anymore. I'll sit up and play some video games or go hang out with some friends. Maybe go out here and there. But really, with this life, it's work and training. You don't really have time for much else. I'd rather sacrifice now and then retire at 35. And then I can relax all day long if I want. So right now it's just train, work, and train some more.
Yes, so in the end, you have to work now just then to be able to rest with some money on your bank account.
Yeah, ticket sales only take you so far. You know what I mean? So, you know, not pro yet either. So not getting, you know, the fight money on top of it. If I was getting the fight money and the ticket sales, I might be able to quit this job. But, right now, just gotta, work my 9 to 5, go home, shower, go to practice, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, do it all
Okay,
over again.
Okay, Eric. So many thanks for the time and for conversation. I hope that you will win your next fight in October. You maybe win some more, and then you maybe next year you will go pro. And I think that you are really one of the fighters who are really worth watching, especially in this stage of your career, because maybe not many people know about you right now. But I think that in 2 or 3 years you will be definitely much more famous.
I appreciate it. It's funny every once in a while, especially locally, because there's only a couple thousand fighters, in Michigan total probably. Uh, I've been out with a few people and stuff, and I've had people recognize me already, and it's a nice feeling. It's a little weird, somebody comes up to you, are you Erick Reaves? And you don't really know how to respond at first, but I'm excited for it, but also, you know, not really because who likes to be noticed everywhere they go? But I'm definitely hoping on it and banking on it.
Yes, I think that money is good, but fame, not really.
Yeah, I want the money, but not the fame, but the money comes with the fame. So take it with a grain of salt.